Ready?
Well, you missed all my little hand signals there and stuff, so
Oh, I
I'm
was
gonna.
watching Evolution.
I didn't want to write down a time and then start speaking in scripts while I'm like,
Okay, you ready right now?
for you. 21. 40.
Welcome to episode 225 of the Linux Lugcast. We are an open podcast lug that meets at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every first and third Friday of the month using Mumble. We encourage anyone listening to join us and participate on the podcast. Check out linuxlugcast.com for the server details. If you have any questions, comments, or topics you would like us to discuss and are unable to join us during the live show, you can send us email at feedback@linuxlugcast.com. You can join our subreddit, which has all but been abandoned, at our Linux Lugcast. A better thing to do would be to come to our Limmy channel, which is also in the show notes, where we post links to Linux stories, projects we've been working on, anything related to the show or what we'd like to talk about. The best place to find us is on our Matrix channel, which is also in the show notes. And there are 20 or 30 something people in there, and we just chit chat and talk all day, post puzzles, post reviews that we've gotten of the show in there, and discuss mostly nonsense, stuff like that. We also have a YouTube channel and a Peertube channel where we post a video cast of the episode. Usually unedited except for the very beginning before we start the show. And so it's a little bit longer than the actual podcast itself because it doesn't have any editing or silence cut out or anything else. But you get to see our beautiful faces. So who doesn't want that? Anyway, tonight I am your host, Minix, and with me is Honky.
Good evening, everybody.
Netminer.
Hello, folks.
Mordency.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Tony in the chat. So a smaller crew than usual tonight. But I think we'll still have a good time. Do you want to, before we get into the movie, let's get into this review real quick. And I'll just copy and paste it into the show notes. Now, this is a comment that somebody wrote on our Peertube channel, which is the same thing that I post on YouTube. So let me get that, copy and paste. And I had changed the original intro to reflect the views of this reviewer, but we decided not to stoop to their level. I'll just put it that way. Okay. So on episode 223, I believe it is, Digit post the comment stfu, shut the fuck up, and start the show, gets said just as I was about to close because none of this is about Linux. It's like people aren't learning from Joe Rogan to start the podcast in the content because no one wants to hear your adverts, off-topic housekeeping, and then there's a lowercase n underscore lowercase n emoji. And this could be one of the greatest Linux podcasts if you just get stuck in the first 4 seconds, and if you get rid of the seat squeak and other audio issues, and stop advertising the corporate malware. And so I don't get it. I don't understand the whole thing about adverts, corporate malware. When do we ever advertise
Advertising.
anything?
Liquid
Death.
Oh, liquid death, I guess, yeah. But we're not, that's just because we like it. We're not paid to talk about it. But what about the corporate malware comment? I don't.
I don't know.
Is it because we
Did,
talk about Windows sometimes? Do you think?
but when do we talk about Windows, really?
Do we just badmouth it?
Yeah.
Uh,
I still think that, people don't seem to fully understand what it is that we do here. Meant as an entertainment podcast like a Joe Rogan or something else. It's meant as is meant more for people who want to come on talk about Linux and stuff, and less about um, being entertaining for somebody else. The listener is almost secondary, at least in my opinion. This is almost secondary to the participants. The whole point, get people to try to come on and have a conversation about Linux, and we record it and put it out there. It's exactly
yeah, it's supposed to be an online lug.
right. And that we record and just kind of send out there for people to listen to. Either you like it or you don't. I'm still going to show up here because I like talking with these guys. Whether anybody wants to listen to us or not, or look at us, or that's completely up to them. But I do it because I like about it. It gives me a place that I can sit down and talk about Linux stuff and talk about projects that I work on. This is almost a serving podcast. For me, and I hope for other people as well.
Catharsis.
Exactly.
Now, some of it is valid. I guess the audio issues. Yeah, we don't have the best audio, but we'd never claimed to in the first place. I mean, we're not a corporate sponsored podcast, so you're not going to find us with $1,000 Rode mics and a soundproof booth to record in. You're going to get seat squeak. You're going to get cats meowing. You're going to get fans in the background or whatever. But I think we come across clear enough to where we're easy to understand, and it's not like we're recording while we're driving and all you can hear is road noise or anything. I mean, you're not going to get FM radio quality, but at least you'll get the point of what we're trying to say, and hopefully the quality is good enough that it's not annoying or anything. Because
Right.
I've heard some podcasts that are just the audio is so bad that it's just I can't listen to it. It's unlistenable. Like especially when they put a mic in the middle of the room and have 4 or 5 guests and they're all talking at once and they got that single mic and it just drives me nuts. I can't listen to podcasts like that. But I think our audio is okay. Sure, there's room for improvement, but it's good enough for now, I think. I think
But
I
that
think
goes back to what I was saying, that it's almost more for the participants, because it's we take what we can get, and sometimes it's great audio, sometimes it's not great audio. We try to help each other out with any audio issues, but it's not going to be perfect. The biggest thing is I'd rather have participants than perfect audio.
yeah.
And I think a lot of, even though it takes a while for us to get to the Linux topics, I think we talk a lot about Linux, and probably more than a lot of the Linux. Well, no, I'm not going to say a lot. Some of the Linux podcasts still out there. We're still going too. I mean, there's a lot of them that have pod faded. I'm not sure what.
There's got to be hundreds of
I
Linux podcasts
haven't
that have
listened to
pod
much of
faded.
anything. Listened to much podcast recently, just because I don't have much of a commute anymore. But I mean, I don't know who's left like Linux podcasts.
I mean, there's Tilts.
Yeah,
Which,
but they don't
do
talk
they
about
even
Linux.
still talk
I
about
like
Linux anymore? I don't think
I like
so.
Dan. I like Joe. um,
I like Pat when he comes on or when he participates. But
Gorkut's a nice guy. It gets frustrating listening to him talk about his house all the time and stuff. But he seems like a nice enough guy.
no, I don't know. What about the Podnut show? Do they still have Linux for the rest of us? And
no, I mean they did. Was it
Mini PC show?
No, I haven't heard anything. Mini PC show was, let's see. I know
That was Rich and Door.
uh, I'm not sure Rich has done much of any podcasting recently. The Linux for the rest of us was two guys who did the Northeast Linux Fest, and now my mind is blanking.
Door was on that, right?
Yeah, it was oh, Jonathan was the most recent co-host with Jonathan Nadeau was the most recent co-host for Linux for the rest of us, but that was about the beginning of this year.
How
I wanna
about
say they
about
did that.
Jupiter? Do they have Linux podcasts on there?
I would imagine.
And a Twit network or whatever it is. What is it called?
That I don't know.
Regardless, I would rather listen to. If it's one thing I don't like listening to is podcasts with just one person, unless it's something like hardcore history or something like that. But if somebody is just droning on and on without any interaction or feedback from somebody else, it's very boring to me. Why I like the Lug atmosphere much better. I've thought about starting like singular podcasts in the past, but because I don't like to listen to those podcasts, I decided against it. And also, I believe that nobody wants to hear a Linux podcast, especially or a tech podcast, without some kind of human touch where you're just reading headlines and stories and you're not actually giving your own input about what you think about it. And if I wanted that, I would just read the internet instead of listening to podcasts. I want to hear people's opinions and their reactions and if they've actually used the software they talk about or what, and their adventures and projects and stuff like that. So
See, I think that's the biggest thing right there is the adventures and the projects. I mean, whether it's, Mortensen was talking earlier about two Python scripts he was writing, and you were talking about stuff, different mini servers you're trying to get up. And I know between the emails that Netminer has been working with MX Linux, but I'd like to hear more about stuff like that. People's journeys, people what are working on, what people are doing. I mean, we can all sit around and talk for hours about what Red Hat's doing, how that affects other things. But I mean,
but is that interesting
how
to
long can you
people?
say? How many times can you say the same thing? You can talk about it for a while, but I'd rather talk about what we're actually working on.
Yeah, for one thing, I like to talk about things that are interesting to me because then I actually have some enthusiasm. And like you said, just talking about what's going on with Red Hat, I heard it once, and that's all I need to hear. Okay, I got the point. I don't need to know somebody's insider information opinion about it because I just don't give a damn.
Right.
It's something that I will never encounter because that's just not the domain that I'm interested in. And if somebody else is, well, then let them start a Red Hat podcast, and talk about it, and everybody can listen to that. So you're going to get our stories and what we've been working on, and you'll get some humor in between just because shit goes wrong a lot of times, and sometimes we can't figure it out, and sometimes it leads to some kind of crackpot adventures, but that's just the way it is. I don't think anybody wants just a dry, robotic, NPR style podcast, about technology because those exist already, and I don't want to emulate that. I like the way we do it, and to me, that's interesting to me, and I think that's why we're gaining listeners and followers. Like our Lemmy has blown up, and a lot of people are becoming new listeners just by searching Linux on Lemmy and finding our community on there. And I think Reddit was just so polluted with, I don't know, just like I think people realize when I first posted about the community on Lemmy, people realized that I was sincere about it, and we are sincere about it, and I wasn't posting it just to make a buck or try to advertise to people that this is something that we're passionate about. And so I think people can sense that. Whereas if you listen to something, say on the Twit network or whatever, where every quarter hour they have something they're advertising to you, I think that really comes through in the attitude of the people that do it for a job rather than something that they do because they're passionate about it. So, I mean, there's not much else to say. You're going to get what you get, and I think we have a formula that works. Now, I'll admit there's some things that could change. I think we could be a little more tighter in our production as far as what I've wanted to do is I tend to stray off of subjects too far and get into rat holes, which is fun, but it may not be something that other people want to listen to. I don't know. Maybe I should move faster and add a little bit better production value to the show and be more disciplined about that. But whatever, I'll do my best in the future, and if it's, I don't know.
I think people want more concise and more. I think if somebody wants something more concise and more specific, there are other podcasts that have that.
It's hard to tell because we don't get enough feedback on the show. I wish people would email more or jump on, our YouTube or Peertube channels or even just come on Mumble and tell us, hey, this is what we want to hear. You don't even have to talk. You can just message us. Come to the Matrix and tell us, this is what I want to hear more of.
Hearing more details from the anti-corporate malware person.
Yeah.
If that was sincere trolling, then I would like to hear.
I'm pretty sure it was sincere. But I mean, it didn't get under my skin or anything. I just thought it was funny. But I just thought, well, except for the stuff that I don't understand, like the corporate malware, I can understand a few things where he's coming from, and I can, help to work to fix that and stuff, and in the future, and tighten it up a little bit. And I think, but like Honky said, what I'd really like more than anything is for more people to come on and just complete strangers is fine. People we don't know who I really hope that they realize how warm our invitation is that goes out to them and how sincere we are when we say we want you to come on and tell us about your experiences with Linux or technology or problems you're having and that is very, very sincere, and I don't know if it's a problem with Mumble being a stumbling block, because I'll post the Mumble channels in some places on the internet, and people click on it and they say, "Well, this doesn't go to anything." I said, "Well, yeah, you got to have the Mumble client to join," and I've seen that a couple times. So maybe Mumble Web would be something to look towards in the future to get more people, less of a roadblock to actually jump on the show or something like that. I don't know what we could do to get more people involved, because I consider this almost like a live version of Hacker Public Radio, where I would really like a larger community to come in and participate, and I think that could be fun, because as far as I know, we're the only online Linux user group podcast that exists, so.
I'm not sure, but I think we're about to. I don't know of any other open podcasts where that we just anybody can show up and come in on and talk Linux if they want to show up and talk about Linux. The barrier to entry is pretty much just install Mumble or one of the Mumble many Mumble's on mobile or any laptop or tablet or whatever. I mean, they're very lightweight applications, and they're the reason why is because of the way it is set up. It has been able to compression rate with it is set in a way where it doesn't take a lot of bandwidth to transmit and receive, and so the barrier to entry it wasn't set very high. So you're able to get some audio pretty easily, and it's not gonna like suck down your bandwidth. It's not gonna be like doing a Zoom call or something like that, where other people on your network are gonna feel the lag. There shouldn't be much of anything for lag because Mumble is very light, and
because it's so
I don't know.
old, it's like super stable too.
Right.
I mean, it's had years to refine itself.
We always have those occasional audio issues and stuff, and we're gonna get.
But that's usually relegated to individuals, like I used to hear people using Google Hangouts or something like that to record their audio, and I would constantly hear problems, and it would knock everybody out because it was Google Hangouts that was having the problem, not somebody's individual Mumble client, And same thing with Skype and all those other centralized services that you can't host yourself. If something goes wrong with the, whatever corporate malware you're using, then you're going to have an issue, So I think I like Mumble for that reason. But maybe Mumble Web, we should consider a Mumble Web extension as well, so somebody could just click on a link and they're in Mumble, and the browser asks for permission to use their microphone, and that's really the only stumbling block to get past.
We'd have to look into that. I think we'd have to host it.
Yeah,
would have to host it.
Which it wouldn't be bad.
No, I don't think it's. I've tried hosting a Murmur server before, which Murmur is the server version of Mumble. I think I've done it on a Pi before, and I've tested it, and it was pretty. I mean, it was one of the older Pis too. It was like a B plus or something like that. So, I mean, I don't think it's a very complex thing. So, it's pretty lightweight still. I think we need to look into that at some point. I think we should look into it. But yeah,
I have my Linode instance and my SSD nodes.
Cool.
Cloud hosting.
Try it.
Try
and host Mumble or Murmur. See if you can get the Mumble Web working.
Was Mumble Web was it a separate thing, or was it like a plugin for Murmur, or?
I forgot. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, it's been a while since we thought about it.
Yeah, it's an HTML5 Mumble client for use in modern browsers. The Mumble protocol uses TCP for control, blah, 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 and UDP for voice. Running in a browser, both are unavailable to this client. Instead, WebSockets are used for control, and WebRTC is used for voice. Installing. So Mumble Web is not a project of Mumble. It's a project of this guy on GitHub. So he has a way to do it to build it, to do an npm install. At the time of this writing, there do not seem to be any Mumble servers which natively support WebSockets and WebRTC. Grumble natively supports WebSockets and can run Mumble Web in fallback mode, but not on its own in WebRTC mode. To use this client with any standard Mumble server in WebRTC mode, Mumble Web Proxy must be set up, preferably on the same machine that the Mumble server is running on. Additionally, you will need some web server to serve static files and terminate the secure WebSocket connection. So it's a little bit more advanced than just a plugin for Murmur. He has configs for Nginx and Caddy, a way to run the web proxy. Here, I'll just put this in the show notes. I remember reading this before, but it's been a long time.
I tried setting that up like host, and I don't think I wasn't able to configure rooms in Mumble, and I never got the web client working.
There's a matrix widget too. Mumble Web has specific support for running as a widget in a matrix room. But I can't tell if it's been forked from Mumble as its own thing. But it says it's a client. I'll have to study this a little bit more. When was the last? Oh, the last commit was 2 years ago.
Well, that's not very good
I
encouragement.
don't know if it's still being maintained or not. Here's third-party applications from the. They have it in Unihost too, Mumble Web. Web interfaces, okay. MumPy is PHP, admin and user functionality, multi-server. And these are separate from the Murmur server. Let's see. Damn, these are old. 2015. Surely there's got to be something newer than that. Let's see, let me look at the code for MumPy. Oh, yeah. Well, a year ago was the last commit. But this was originally built 14 years ago. Wow. But, this may just be to administer the Murmur server. It doesn't say anything about actually using it as an audio client. What else do they got? I'm looking at the Mumble wiki right now. Mumble web interface. Oh, now it's been a long time. 2010, 13 years ago. Bots, channel viewers. Maybe this, okay, here we go. Mumble web is on here under clients. Boomla, Forker Plumble. There's a Linux CLI headless client. Terminal base, Forker Plumble. So the only web one is Mumble Web. And it has here it says quite a few features are still missing, most noticeably voice activity detection and all administrative functionality. But I mean, I think if somebody just wants to jump on, they could use that still, and while we could continue to use the official Mumble client. The thing is that they never mention the Murmur server on the Mumble web GitHub page. I don't know. If you want to install this Mortensen, maybe you could look into this because I'm not sure how it works. Let me look into Unihost.
I think one of the reasons the guy got so peeved about what he called corporate malware is that we've been running basically two shows laid together.
Go on.
We've been running a show on media, and we've been running the Linux stuff. And oftentimes the media stuff swaps the Linux stuff.
But the media is just a few minutes in the beginning of the show. And I wouldn't call a movie corporate malware.
Yes, then again, people who are, this guy is clearly focused on hearing about something, like Linux news or something like that, and then when he hears you talking about what you're actually watching or whatnot, he just, gets very peeved.
Well, one thing we could do a monthly movie or something instead of every show, or just do I don't know. It's up to you guys.
Well, didn't we move the whole show thing, the whole movie thing, to movie review to the beginning of the show because you thought it kind of lined people up a bit to discuss something like that first, and then we would go into other topics?
Yeah.
Well, we put that into the actual show, and then because beforehand it was during the pre-show part, so they would have to wait till the end of the audio show.
So should we move it to the pre-show again?
I don't know. I don't have a problem.
We'll just make it shorter. How's that?
I think we definitely need to, instead of going on, because we did get criticism before about talking, explaining the movie for too long, and I think that was probably a valid point. I think if we just go to like the wiki page or something like that and
Just
pull
give a
their
quick rundown.
review, their synopsis, and then just throw that synopsis in there, and then give a review of the movie.
Yeah, because I'm good at giving a quick rundown as long as Joe isn't here to keep him around. I'm just kidding, Joe. But because I've done that before on other like movie podcasts, So why don't we get into that real quick? just to get it out of the way.
Oh, Dark City.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to try to pull something up from somewhere, or do you want to try to make up a quick synopsis?
I can just do it off the cuff. It's pretty.
Right.
It's so we picked this movie Dark City. It's from 1998 to watch. It's kind of if you like film noir, but set in kind of like futuristic settings, like what was the one that Total Recall 2077 or something like that? Did you ever watch that, Honky? It was pretty good. But it's kind of like a detective movie, but film noir usually has these elements of like usually shot at night, and there's kind of like a mystery going on, and there's a hard-boiled detective. It's similar to that, where the mystery is that there's a man who is the main character, and he wakes up not knowing really who he is or where he's from or what's going on. And along the way, throughout the movie, he gets these clues that the whole entire city he's in, number one, never has the daylight. It's always nighttime. Number two, people fall asleep at midnight and are replaced by these people called the strangers. The whole city is rearranged, and the people's outfits are changed, and they're injected with something into their head. And he's in the middle of this mystery, while at the same time he's being pursued by this detective who thinks he's some kind of night stalker murderer, which is in all the papers around the city. And the whole mystery of the movie is figuring out who this guy is, what his backstory is, who these strangers are that come in and rearrange everything. They're kind of creepy looking. They're all bald-headed, and they carry these knives and syringes with them. And what exactly is going on with people losing their memories or being manipulated in a way that they uh, uh, change their entire lifestyle. Like their outfits are changed, their houses are changed, their jobs are changed, and they become completely new people. So that's kind of the whole mystery that's going on throughout the movie. If you've seen Christopher Nolan's movie Inception, where they have the dream sequences where you see the buildings rolling and changing and the landscape changing, I believe this movie had a lot of pretty big influence on there, because these strangers use their telekinetic powers to change the city around, and the special effects are actually pretty good for this time period, for 1998. It is kind of a film noir mystery where you're constantly trying to figure out what's going on. And just in case people haven't seen it, I won't reveal like exactly who the strangers are or what their origin is, but I'll just leave it as they are trying to uh, perform an experiment, because they are not exactly human, as to what makes a human being human, what makes them individual, because these strangers have a collective kind of consciousness mind, and they don't have their own individuality. And it has, who's that? Kiefer Sutherland plays a doctor in it. I forget the main actor. Let's see. Rufus Sewell plays the protagonist in it, which I don't know if I've really seen him in other movies before. I don't recognize him. William Hurt plays the detective who's on his case because he thinks he's a murderer, and Jennifer Connelly plays his wife. And Jennifer Connelly has always been my crush, my main number one all-time crush, ever since she did that movie where they're in that Target at night. And do you remember that movie? And it's her and that nerdy guy, and they're just kind of riding grocery carts around the store and stuff. And I imagine she was in her teens when she made that movie. But Labyrinth, she was still a little bit young. Career Opportunities, that's the name of that movie. But it's kind of a sci-fi. It's a mystery. It's got a lot of great special effects. It's got kind of some horror elements as far as these strangers go. They're pretty creepy looking. And one thing it's not, though, is a tech movie. So I don't know how it got added to the list, but I definitely believe it's worth watching. And this director, Alex Proyas, made The Crow was his previous movie right before he made this one, and I thought that was a pretty good movie too. And it has a lot of the same dark, kind of gritty elements and noir type of development and stuff like that. So I give it a thumbs up for Dark City. What about you guys?
Absolutely.
Thumbs up, definitely.
And I've seen this before. I just didn't remember it really what went on. Not that it's not a memorable movie. It's just I think I saw it in the theater in '98. So that's been a long time ago. 25 years ago. Yeah. And from what I understand, reading it on IMDb, it was kind of a big box office bomb, which I can understand that because it's kind of convoluted, especially the plot, and it probably wouldn't appeal to mainstream audiences. But if you're looking for something different, and if you liked Inception and The Matrix, it has a lot in common with The Matrix too, as well as human beings kind of being experimented on by a different race or whatever, and a lot of cool noir, sci-fi, and horror elements.
I think when it came out and pushed it as like a almost Lovecraft inspired, like cosmic horror kind of movie.
Yeah, I can see that because they were underground and they've kind of have these powers that human beings don't have, and it definitely has that feel. I think Lovecraft probably would have liked this movie. But Dark City, I give it a thumbs up, especially with Jennifer Connelly. My main squeeze. She doesn't remember me when we used to date, but because the aliens took away her memory. But yeah, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It's just not a tech movie, but I give it a thumbs up. So we got 3 thumbs up here. All right.
Thumbs up.
Now I have got a little script here working to pick the next movie. It's not perfect because for some reason it's not ignoring what I have hashed out, but it does pick a random line from the list. So, do you have a drum roll handy, Mordency?
No.
All right. All right, there we go. Let's see. Start this up. Delete from 2013. Anybody remember that one?
No.
I'll
What was
read
it?
Delete from 2013.
I think we saw that.
Oh, okay.
I
don't
think
think
Delete
so.
and I think Delete and Upgrade were the same movie. Delete had the girl and was terrible.
No, that wasn't Delete. That was something else. I'm almost
What year is it?
2013. That movie came later, the one we saw with the girl. This says, IMDb says it's a 2-episode miniseries.
An hour and a half.
It's not bad. Now I'm curious, what was the movie with the girl we watched? I remember that. Everybody hated it except me. Intersect? Yeah. Because it only has 1 star, and I'm the only one that gave it thumbs up. Intersect. So, next show's movie will be Delete. And I'll read the quick synopsis of that. A reporter and a young hacker uncover an artificial intelligence which has become sentient. It has one goal, self-preservation. Humans are trying to destroy it, so it's it or them. Hey, that's kind of topical to what's going on now with all the AI stuff. Oh, it's got a... it looks like Seth Green on the cover. Yeah, Seth Green is holding what looks like an AR-15 or some type of rifle. He's got a beard and a mustache. Looks very strange. I'm used to seeing him as some kind of babyface character.
Right.
So that is now in the show notes. Now, Laser Blast deserved its own long commentary, I believe. That was unique enough.
Well, how long can you really commentary on Laser Blast?
There's so much I could say about Laser Blast.
Yeah. It was such a complex movie with so many like subplots and
it has to be seen to believe, to be believed.
That was the most fun / stupid movie we've seen in quite some time.
Let's see. I'm gonna... Oh, I'll talk about... Anybody want to go first? I was going to talk about this little computer I just got. Another thing I want to do is get a better webcam for my laptop. It's easier to see. So let me put it in the show notes real quick so you can see the specs. Zero 3. Where am I at? Okay, I put it in the show notes. So I'll kind of talk about this. It's a neat little computer. It was $25, and it's a. I'll show it as I'm talking about it. It's what I like about this is it actually has Ethernet on it, and it's got USB, and it's got USB-C, and then it's got a micro HDMI. What it doesn't have, is eMMC, like onboard storage, so you have to use a micro SD card with it, or you could use USB storage through one of the ports here. It's a AM Logic quad-core CPU, and it even has a little antenna for Wi-Fi. I believe the GPIO is the same layout as what's on the Raspberry Pi Zero. So if you have any shields or peripherals that go on the Raspberry Pi Zero, you could use it with this as well. But what's unique about this is it has 4 gigabytes of memory, which is pretty nice. So I have the original Zero, and it only has 512 megabytes of memory, and so it was pretty limited on what it could do. But this one has 4 gigs, and so you could run quite a few things on it if you wanted to. I got it just because I'm a big fan of the Orange Pi series, and on AliExpress it was $25, and it took about, I don't know, maybe just over 3 weeks to get here, which isn't too bad. But there's a Ubuntu image for it, there's a Debian image, there's an Armbian image. So there's several images for it, as well as an Android image if you wanted to use it for Android. And but I'll probably use it with the Armbian image. And I'm not quite sure exactly what I want to use it for. I thought about using it with a small, because I have a camera module that'll go GPIO, and since it has enough horsepower and RAM on it, I'd like to use it with some kind of edge AI image detection, like face detection and license plate detection and object detection, stuff like that. I think would be really cool with something like this, since it has all that. And plus, it's small, so I don't have. I could hook the camera directly to it, and then move the camera in the little PC wherever it needs to be. So that's kind of what I thought about doing with it. And since it has plenty of horsepower and plenty of RAM, 4 gigabytes of RAM. So and it's small too. It's about half the size of the Raspberry Pi 4. So I'll print a little case for it, and I've got some tiny heat sinks for it, and I have a tiny fan that I can use to integrate into the case as well. So be on the lookout. I'll do a little performance test for it and probably put that on my blog. How it holds up and stuff like that, and temperature and everything like that pretty soon. And just want to play around with it. So the other one I'm working on is the Radsaw Zero, which is the exact same form factor as the Raspberry Pi Zero, except it has a stronger quad-core processor, and it has 2 gigs of RAM, and it has USB-C, 2 USB-C ports, and a micro HDMI port. And this one I want to use with the RTL SDR dongle. To start getting back into the whole radio thing. So Open Web RX or Open, I forget what I was using before on the other one I had, but it's a web interface for the RTL SDR dongle, and it's really nice. It has the whole waterfall and all that stuff on it, and it's not really resource intensive, so this should be plenty for several users, and it's small too. So what's cool about it is I can put it, right next to the window, along with when I hook up the antenna to the dongle and all that stuff, and should be able to get some good signals and stuff like that. So those are 2 upcoming projects I got going on as far as computer stuff.
Maybe you could make the camera cat detection. Talk about fuzzy logic.
Yeah, I would like to do. I want to do I want to point it at the window, so it does object detection, like cars, but also I have a small bird feeder out there, and I'd like to detect when birds are there. What kind of even if I could do like color detection to detect what kind of birds they are, that would be really cool, and do like a little bird census or something with my bird feeder. As long as Buster doesn't get in the way, because that's his favorite spot to sit, is watching that bird feeder. And I could angle it in such a way that I could do something like that, So we'll see. There's a lot of really small Python libraries that you can use now for single board computers. They're becoming more common for AI and object detection that are all on board. You don't have to offload to some corporate malware server. But anyway, that's kind of the direction I wanted to go with this one, and we'll see how it goes. I see in Unohost they have the Mumble web application. You could install it. I wonder if connecting to the server. Okay, so you have to. I could install it now and see if I could connect it to our main Mumble server. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and install it. Sorry, this app must be installed on a domain of its own, but other apps are already installed on my domain. You could use a subdomain to dedicate to this app instead. Yes. Manage domains. Well, I'll have to go into my DNS and create a subdomain and all that stuff. I'll do that later. I want to take up the whole show time.
So is Mumble Web Client?
What about it?
Is Mumble Web Client? So in other words, there's a Murmur server, and you can connect to the Murmur server through the Mumble Web Client.
I believe so, yes.
So every time that a person connects through the IP, that gives them their own, basically their own client instance.
Yeah, yeah. Their own client instance. They'd have to create their own username, you know, just like regular Mumble.
Right. Both of these PCs look pretty cool.
Yeah, Orange Pi
First one
makes
was from
good stuff, you know. I like their stuff.
the only downside I've ever heard about Orange Pi is the heat.
Heat,
Heat
yeah,
issues.
that is true. And I've mitigated that with the Orange Pi Zero I had, the original one with the small fan that I built into the case I printed it for it. And I didn't after that I didn't really have any problems with it. So let's see. I'm gonna go to the Linux.
Well, no matter. Do you want to talk about some of your
Oh
recent
yeah,
experiences with MX Linux? There was an upgrade to MX Linux, and I know you were having a little bit of trouble with the upgrade to MX.
Yeah, well, uh, I was trying to upgrade using the MX21 boot disk creation tool. And I thought the ISO had been just made as a standard DVD ISO instead of the hybrid that most people write to flash drives. But when I used Balena Etcher on the ISO, it wrote just fine. So the MX21 flash drive tool could not write a flash drive up to be a bit of a problem. But now that I've got it, I can continue my upgrades. Also, I'm going to upgrade my 8-thread mini PC to a full 30 gigabytes of RAM. Although I wasn't able to get the same deal. This will be 2400 megahertz instead of 3200. But for my application, I don't think I'm going to notice the difference much.
Now, MX is based on Debian, isn't it?
Yeah, the MX23 is Debian Bookworm, which is the latest released earlier this spring. So
Debian being rolling, I'm surprised there isn't a just a regular upgrade path where you just upgrade or whatever, and it would just keep rolling right along.
the only upgrade path that there are two upgrade paths. There's Nuke and Pave, which is the easy one. And then there is editing your sources.list, which is painful. And but there is no push button dist upgrade. MX23 uses a 6.1 kernel, which means it's quite a jump from the 5.10 kernel that 21 used. Also, besides the MX improvements, this is the first Debian to support what used to be the restricted drivers out of the box. Debian has finally decided that systems which need drivers can get them through Debian without jumping through hoops. This is a massive leap forward for the Debian controlling council. People have had to work around them for decades. So now they're actually allowing you to get non-free drivers or non-open source drivers if you need it for your hardware. And they will be included in stock Debian instead of an unofficial branch. I expect this to be a great relief to a lot of distros that are downstream from Debian, from pure Debian, because they won't have to deal with so much with basic driver issues.
So I can't install Mumble Web without having Mumble Server installed.
Okay. Why? Well, host has the thing for the member server, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm about to install it now.
And again, can we set it up and point it to Delwyn's server that we're on now, or?
That's something I don't know.
Okay.
So you're building a kind of a whole network infrastructure and managing it with Cockpit Netminer?
That's the plan at the moment. Yes. Also, you were talking about heat. I've been playing with the i5 2400 or 2500 laptop that I had hanging around, and that machine was produces a lot of heat. I had hoped to keep it hanging around as a fairly decent node on my network, but I think I'm going to try for another mini PC and kick that one to the curb. A 6500 or 6700 has a heck of a lot more performance, has definitely better I/O, and may actually be lower powered. And it has a better BIOS by far.
So what's the now? What's the end game? What exactly do you want to use this for?
Well, there are two end games. One is having the more powerful machines able to support one or more VMs. The lighter weight machines are going to be supporting more probably Docker containers. I would say Podman containers, but I can't get the kind of documentation on Podman without paying a premium for recent books.
I mean, you want
Yeah,
I know you want
Docker
to use Docker
is
and
well supported.
Podman, but you want to use them to install what exactly? Is there certain applications that you want to use, like for your writing or
Well,
something like that?
well, for, um, for one thing, a Docker install of something like Etherpad would probably solve some problems.
Okay.
Also, there's a something that I just dug up called SF SFPD Go. It supports other things from web dev to, you know, it supports several backends, and it is a Docker item. Haven't really just heard about it. Haven't really dug into it too much, but it would give multi-protocol web support for file transfers and stuff that I'm interested in exploring. Also interested in exploring emulated old iron from 370 to maybe PDP 11 or VAX era machines. Since most of these machines are 16 megabyte limited, at least in the original forms, there should be plenty of room on even my smallest mini PCs. And once like those up, I can run things like MBS, which is IBM's big 70s and 80s operating system, which is open source because a lot of the work was done under government contract. VM 370, I believe, is in the same area. And believe it or not, there are people still retrofitting features to these older, and we're talking 40, 50-year-old operating systems. And because of the generation it is perfectly legal, because MBS, the original MBS, got upgraded to the closed source product. Did everything get locked down? But I can have inside any of my Intel machines or even my Raspberry Pi, I can have probably 2 or 3 370 systems. And Linux has a lot of ability to speak to big IBM iron, either real or emulated. Never mind, some of the other stuff is available through the SimH emulation suite. I mean, we're going back to punch card and mag tape systems. And I've read about a lot of these machines, and I would like to be able to explore running them, especially since the entire network would not strain my my resources. Also, the I could run the machines, both memory and disk, in RAM on Linux machines.
So this is more for like a learning experience for you. Get to know the hardware and the software and all that stuff.
Yes, also, quite frankly, by maxing out the machines that I've got or that I can get recently, I can afford to run them, and this is about the best tech that I can expect. So looking for applications that won't require higher performance, increasingly higher performance, like gaming or whatever. The only thing that really taps performance is many tabs open, but I can deal with that. Also, I want to explore the possibilities of having some of these machines wake on LAN, so that we can have a primary machine and then remotely start up other machines and have my applications respond accordingly. Now, I don't know if emulated IBM PC could be used as a console on my emulated 370, but that would be an interesting hack. Also, there are legacy networks for a lot of hobbyist machines, whether it's the IBM 370s or Digital Equipment Corporation machine emulated machines like the VAX.
Now, what would be the point of emulating that older hardware?
Is it just to play with it and experiment?
Largely playing with it and experimenting, largely getting the feel of stuff that I've only read about, or, well, I did get some early exposure to a PDP-11 slash Minivax system when I was at MIT. Might be interesting to have BSD 3.2.9 something or other running inside of my Linux whatever version.
Danny, you look deep thought. Are you still looking at the
I
web?
have it installed and I've created a subdomain for it, but I'm trying to figure out what port I need to assign to the IP address. I think it is
6478.
what did you say? 64738. Yeah, I'm gonna try that. Add entry here. I think there's a self-signed certificate for it too. 57 64738. So I'm about to find out if I can get to it. WebSockets. Right. Creating the entry. Just trying. You know. Let me just try the local IP. Six four seven three eight. Advanced. Is that the right? Yeah, 232. Huh. Nah, something's. It may not be the right port. It says it's running, but. Let me try just going to the server itself. Yeah. You know. So I'm going to the local IP. User interface. Dang it. Stations. Web. Open this app. Nah. It doesn't want to do it. I think Host is not the right platform for this. Even though it's there, I think it's probably needs a native install. But at least I know you need what do you call a mumble server to install mumble web now. Alright, fuck it. I'll just do it later. Not working. I'm just going to restore a backup of my host instead of trying to go through all the other stuff. I have one from today. 8.4. Yep. Alright.
Morton, you even want anything?
Yeah, you got anything going on, Mordency?
So I have Rocky Linux installed and got some new cables, video to HDMI, video port, something like that. Anyway, I've got it connected to the two monitor TVs that I use for work, personal TVs used for my work setup. And I'm starting to set up things on there. Once I get everything working, I'll plug it directly into the router in the basement and use the monitors for the Garuda Linux. Hopefully I can get the two monitors set up with the drawing screen and start doing or the Ansel, that cloud, like Xeon Nook type server, and wipe out Edge Linux from the company Ansel, and either go with Rocky Linux or with Proxmox. I think I'm not sure which. I need to do some more Proxmox stuff and some more Rocky Linux stuff. Figure out which direction I'm going. At work, I have been working on Docker and Podman in parallel, and am having lots of issues running that on RHEL 7 and RHEL 8. I'm having problems doesn't have the Docker stuff, and in Cockpit, the newer Cockpit on Red Hat 8, it's got some container stuff added to Cockpit, but it's not quite the same. Anyway, I'm having issues with both, but I'm simultaneously trying to learn Docker and Podman. And then Python. I've been doing some Python scripting, mostly with things at work, but I'm trying to translate that to personal stuff. I'm using SQLite as a base to store data after pulling stuff, usually from configuration files. And then once I have data loaded into the database, then I can grab other information. So I'm doing printers, stuff with the printers for the cup and some other things that they're pingable, stuff like that. And then I'm also building the server list. I'm going to keep track of what's active, what's decommissioned, and then just kind of building a whole network / monitoring tool, which is the same thing, 50 other companies have done. But theirs doesn't do what I want.
It's a pretty fun tool to use is Toolbox. It's like for running. I think it's based on Podman, but it's made for the desktop, and so you can open up a terminal, type Toolbox, create, and you can choose like what image you want to use for the base image, like Alpine or Fedora or whatever, and then it installs it in the Podman container, and then I use it because I'm using Kinoite, which is immutable, so unless I want to rebase the whole OS image to install an application, I'll just install it in a Toolbox container, which is basically a desktop Podman container, and then I'll install the application there, and then you can call the application from the Toolbox container. You can use an alias, or you can call it in the terminal. But it's a pretty neat way to get started with Podman, just kind of on a desktop level. And it's not. It doesn't have like all the networking stuff because it's not meant for server applications. It's meant for like applications you want to install within a mutable OS and don't want to rebase the OS or add a bunch of libraries. You just put them all in a container. So I really like the GNOME disks utility, and so that's probably my favorite like utility to create images for USBs and to if I have a backups I want to make and save those, I'll use GNOME disks. It's just really easy, and so I use Toolbox for GNOME disks, and I use it for a couple other applications too that don't have Flatpaks, and it's really neat. You might like it. It's easy to install Toolbox, and I think they have it for pretty much every OS. Now it's originally Red Hat application or Fedora or whatever from that family. So, but I installed.
It sounds like a great, um, and then you can translate things to Podman under cockpit.
Yeah, it's essentially a wrapper for Podman. Is basically what Toolbox is, and maybe that'll help to get some of the commands under your belt, to start learning those. But I was loading a image to the Radshaw 0, and all the instructions are for Ubuntu or Debian to use the Python script, the Python tool they have. I couldn't get it to work on just my Fedora, so I made a minimal Debian toolbox Podman container, and then I used that to use their Python tools to load the image to my Radshaw 0, and it worked really well. You can choose whatever base image you want to put into your Podman container, and then install applications that way. And when you're actually inside the toolbox, it has like a little pink or purple diamond next to your prompt, so you know you're in it. And when you want to get out of it, you just type toolbox exit. I like it.
So is it a desktop application, or is
Yeah,
it just
yeah. I mean, it's a CLI application. But it's made to install desktop applications, or to use with a desktop. It's like a wrapper for Podman. Say they don't have, since I'm using Kinoite, if they don't have a Flatpak or something like that, I can just install the application within its own container, Podman container, via Toolbox. So it's kind of cool.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
So along with the server thing, I want to move forward with that to where I create a website that I can store in a Docker container, pull the website files from like a repository, when the application, either when I build the image or the Docker image, or after it starts up, that it pulls the current files, and then have a deployable server tool in Docker where where you can put in all your servers, whether by host name or IP address, and do different things like monitor, let's encrypt, GP keys haven't expired, certificates haven't expired, stuff like that.
Another good tool for something like that. Oh, go ahead.
So I had two other projects I was thinking of working on. One, we have a bunch of laptops that are thousands of laptops that are being, since they're having such a problem getting people to return them, they're buying out the leases. So when they come back, they've only paid $1 for them, and they're owned by the company, and they're disposing of them. I was told I might be able to get them.
Ooh.
So they're like, so I was thinking about doing a whole I don't know, laptop. Maybe we could do laptop giveaways on the show. A different Linux distro every episode.
That would be fun.
Giving away a laptop.
Yeah.
But another project I wanted to work on is several people have told me, with all the problems with file transfers that we have at work, and with vendors who sell that service of, hosting an SFTP server, and they can't get things to work. Several people have said, well, why don't you just create a business and do that? And with Docker and Docker Swarm and deploy to different cloud services, Azure, Google Cloud, Linode, AWS, very, very minimal servers that would be scalable at the client's cost, and would just be managing PGP keys, SSH keys, user IDs, and directory structures.
Mm-hmm.
Complicated level would be putting in listing for specific IP addresses or blacklisting ranges of IP addresses.
Like Brazil and China and Korea.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're setting it up for a company in the U.S. in the state of Oklahoma, and the only other place they need to connect to is,
LA or something.
a government site in D.C., you could,
LA.
anything. You could, geolocate locations of IP addresses, even just limiting it to the U.S. or specific states, and having exceptions put in. The biggest thing would be documenting it well, so it's not your fault.
Well, I think you got a nice lead on those laptops.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing at work. They just changed the policy because apparently they had several hundred laptops that were never inventoried before they were shipped out. They were supposed to be imaged and inventoried, and a new manager over the desktop group was like, "No, they need to be sent right now." And then there was a year and a half later, they were trying to find all these laptops, and nobody knew anything about them. They don't know where they're at, who has them. They don't know if these or if they just walk off.
Well, damn. They sound like nice machines. I don't know how they're configured, but they're looks like they're equivalent to some of the mini PCs that we're using.
Yeah, mine's due for a replacement, and it is where's that? I still have it open in front of me. It is mine is 16 gigs of RAM. Most of them are 8. i5 8365U 1.6 gigahertz, 4 cores, 8 logical processors. I think 256 gig SSD. AC wireless. UHD graphics 620.
Please, that's enough info. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start mopping the floor.
I'm gonna have to the global director and ask for the desktop group and ask him if I can get them in mass.
Okay, just remember Honky and me are already in mass.
You already have enough?
I didn't say it. I'm saying I was trying to make a joke.
Can you ever have enough?
Let's put it this way. Those machines, Well, I have a small laptop that's got a 1 gigahertz processor of a later generation. Got a lot of threads, but no horsepower. Those seem like they're more balanced.
Yeah, well, I'll bet if I can get some.
So that's what, that's the it will be appreciated by whoever gets them.
You gonna make it, Honky?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Should we go over some links?
Sure.
We have a Linux Gamecast. We haven't had that in a long time.
We still have music?
No, it's too late for the music. This is a pretty cool game. I'm going to put it in the show notes. It's a Linux air combat. One second. Make this official. It's a free and open source free open source combat flight simulator developed by AskMrWizard.com for Linux. Its roots came from the well-known classic fight game known as GL117, but this new incarnation has been extensively rewritten and improved, and the focus has changed from arcade gaming to World War II combat flight simulation. You can download it as an app image and make it executable and run it. It says it runs nicely on almost any kind of computer that can run any popular version of desktop Linux, ranging from Raspberry Pi through Steam Deck and on up to super gaming class machines. And it looks pretty cool. I mean, they show it running on the Steam Deck. And they have some YouTube clips showing how to play it. It's free and open source, and you get to battle in different kinds of planes, and it shows your heads-up display there. And if you're into simulated air combat, you might like it. Page was updated April 24th, 2023, so it's a fairly recent version, even though the website looks very old.
I like the graph of this. It looks really good.
Yeah, it looks fun. And you could use it with a, if you had the flight stick, they have a control set for a flight stick as well, throttle and all that, or for a controller, or for a keyboard. Anybody in there into flight simulators for Linux? Out Linux Air Combat. So if you can even run it on a Raspberry Pi, then it'd be pretty good. Whatever you got. "54 different flyable aircraft from World War II. 45 flight view functions can be mapped to any dedicated joystick access button or keyboard key. Mouse controls. Anyway, any of y'all ever play flight simulators?
I've played them a little bit. I haven't done much combat flight simulators. I did a couple of way back when I did the Microsoft. And then the only thing close to a combat flight simulator that I've done it would be, I think, TIE Fighter back in the day.
There is another Linux Gamecast update. I'm going to put it here. It looks cool. I actually want to play this one. Let's see here.
Wait a minute. Have you not played Linux Air Combat?
Oh, I
Linux?
have not.
Oh.
Is that a faux pas?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's great that you brought it up, I guess. Beforehand, it was games that you downloaded and played.
I know, but
you gave us your experience on it.
But I didn't review this one at least.
Fair
since
enough.
I haven't played it. I just said it looks cool. Next one
Fair
I probably
enough.
will install here pretty soon this weekend. It's called the Command Line Murders, and it's a CLI mystery. And it's all within the command line. So there's been a murder in Terminal City, and TCPD needs your help. To figure out who done it, you need access to a command line. Open the terminal, blah, blah, blah. Just tells you how to install. To get started, use the command line, open cheat sheet or cheat sheet PDF, and that helps you get started. And it looks like it's kind of a way to teach you not only like CLI commands, but also play a game in the process. Put that in the show notes as well. See. Got some hints there. Looks like you navigate folder structures to view certain hints within the game.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So you need to use grep. Search files for clues. Cat to read the clues. Head, tail. Regular expressions. Anyway, might be fun. What else we got? There's a couple of new themes. One's called Chicago 95, which is a theme to make your Linux desktop look like Windows 95. That in the show notes.
Yeah, Chicago was the code name for Windows 95.
Okay, that's in the show notes. Got some screenshots here, and they show it with Ubuntu with the Windows 95 conversion. It has all the file trees and the little start menu and everything. It looks pretty cool. So if you're feeling nostalgic for some old Windows 95 themes, they have Chicago 95.
Oh, so pretty.
Even a LibreOffice icon theme to go with it. How do you like that? I said, how do you like that?
It looks ugly. That's what I like it.
So you do like it? Does that bring you back, Netminer, to the old Windows 95 days?
Yes, but it still won't do the thing that Windows 95 was most famous for doing. That is to
Crashing?
say, eat itself alive.
Now, for another theme, if you're familiar with Terry Davis, RIP, he built his own operating system from scratch called Temple OS. And you can install the Temple OS theme for your desktop if you want to make Linux look like Temple OS.
I was just about Temple OS with a couple non-Linux people a couple hours ago.
This one is for Arch Linux. Which, if you don't know who Terry Davis is, I recommend you do some research. He was actually an amazing guy who unfortunately had schizophrenia and kind of degraded into homelessness, and then I believe he was hit by a train when he was laying on the tracks one day. He had essentially been homeless for a while. Or you could install Temple OS, the actual operating system, which according to
Apparently,
Terry,
it's being updated.
is it really? Somebody forked it and picked it up, or what?
Apparently, there's all updates and applications being made for it.
Oh, that's crazy. So Terry thought that God told him he needs to make an operating system. So that's exactly what he did from scratch. So it has a lot of like Bible-based games and applications in it, and stuff like that. But it's an amazing effort for one guy to create an entire graphical operating system.
I think he needs to get back Udority, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I think he can make a fucking desktop environment.
I mean, he even wrote his own language to create the operating system with. So, pretty amazing. And our group, our Lemmy community, now has 71 subscribers, so it keeps going up.
Woo.
People are jumping on the train. Probably double what we had on Reddit. Now here's one for Netminer. This is called Retrogram RTL SDR. Put this in the show notes. And it's a pretty neat CLI application to view your RTL SDR dongle. So everything is in the spectrum analyzer is rendered using ASCII art from the RTL SDR, and you can tune to different bands within the application, but you don't need a GUI. It's all within the terminal. It has keyboard controls for panning and zooming, tuning, dynamic range keys, gain, sampling rate, frame rate. It's pretty cool. You just, I think it looks like there is no binary, so you have to build it after you install a few libraries. Then just run it. It has a waterfall, ASCII art waterfall, which is cool. So I thought that was cool. Retrogram.
It looks cool.
I may try that when I get this little Bradshaw Zero set up. Hey, here's something I wanted y'all's opinions on. It's a blog post saying LTS should equal 15 years, not 5 years. Put this in the show notes. So which I agree with it. I don't know about 15 years, but I believe it should be longer than 5 years, because those 5 years, especially when you're running servers and administrating servers, go by super quick. And to only have 5 years of updates and support for that to me, is not enough.
We
So
just now got Red Hat 5 at work.
Really?
Yeah, we still have Red Hat 6.
So yeah, so you understand how companies work and how slow the update process can be, and to think that 5 years is enough is, to me, is not great. There's a lot of info here.
We still have a couple Windows 2003 servers in our infrastructure.
That's why I always like the idea of the rolling release.
But I think you need a stable rolling release. So
Rolling release is okay for desktop. I don't use it for server. So
Well, straight Debian, pretty stable rolling release.
Debian's not a rolling release.
Debian is rolling.
No, they come out with new versions like every few years. 11, then 12.
But the upgrade, well, the upgrading is still rolling. Well, you know what? Wait, I didn't know it was a rolling release. It's not like Ubuntu where you have to. It's a pain in the ass to move it up to the next version. It was just holding the new version.
This guy says, uh,
The testing isn't considered a rolling release.
yeah, but not stable. Like they just released 12 stable.
I've always used testing or
You have?
TID. Yeah, I usually use testing.
I don't. Not for servers.
So a lot of times, stable is far enough back where it can get scared of some things. So I usually want to be using testing.
Even for server use?
Well, most of my server use stuff is I don't adjust too much. Let's see, I am using my host, and I haven't adjusted which that's using Armbian, isn't it?
Debian.
Yeah. And I didn't adjust which version. I don't know. I'm not against the idea of it. I mean, it would make it easier, wouldn't it? Just set it up as testing. I mean, testing. Debian testing. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody having problems in testing crashing. I know people who are worried, concerned about Debian testing crashing, but I don't think I've ever heard of anybody about Debian testing crashing like Arch Linux. But so set up Debian testing and then just set it up for set up a script on a cron job on a script to update like daily.
Well, it also depends on the software you're using on the OS. Like here's an example. So I like Shell in a Box on Unohost, but I cannot update my Unohost yet because Shell in a Box hasn't released a new version for the new version of Unohost. But because I use Shell in a Box so often, I mean, it's one of the main applications I use with Unohost. I can't update Unohost until Shell in a Box releases a compatible upgrade for the new Unohost. And then imagine when you're using like closed source, vendor specific software where they really drag their feet when it comes to upgrades to new versions of operating systems, to work with new with new kernels and stuff like that. So you're always going to have the old software, stable software, but they may not release something for the new kernel. It may take them forever. Like where I work, we use a rendering software called Printergy that's made by Kodak, and the operators that work on Macs, they are stuck on an old version of Mac OS because the Printergy software they use has not been upgraded to the next version of Mac OS. So they keep getting these alerts and error messages, or not error messages, but alerts from Apple saying you need to upgrade so you can get these security updates, but they can't update because of the software hasn't been updated yet. So stuff like that. This guy, he says, you also have to understand the hardware cycle. Intel and AMD, most definitely Apple, maybe telling customers to upgrade every year or two, but for 98% of the market, there is no need. Especially if you just think about it. How do you use your desktop, laptop, computer? Surfing the web, checking, answering email, word processor, occasional to heavy spreadsheet use, maybe an accounting budget package, stream the occasional video music. For 98% of the global market, that's it. Despite the millions spent on games, gaming systems themselves are a small market. Let's also be honest here. With the exception of streaming, you all did the above when you had a 386 running Windows 3.1. You can easily do that now with a decent Linux distro on an original Core 2 Duo. There are people on eBay right now selling those machines complete with monitor, classified refurbished for under $200 with free 4-day shipping. Some of them claim to have Windows 10 loaded. As far as hardware goes, I think his point is that you don't need the latest hardware to do the majority of tasks that most people do. So it makes sense, since people are able to keep their hardware for a long time, that LTS should be just as long as you keep as the hardware as well. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Now Ubuntu, if you buy into their Pro subscription, don't they give you like 10 years of support for an LTS release with Ubuntu Pro?
Something like that, yeah.
Here's some quick hits. I've tried to label quick hits on the Lemmy page for just quick stuff. Linux Mint plans a new Edge edition for newer hardware. That was on DistroWatch. Somebody downvoted that to 0. I guess it wasn't that interesting. They maintain 2 branches, one in Ubuntu and one in Debian. Let's see. The Mint team is also working on a new edition called Edge, which will provide more up-to-date hardware support via a new kernel. Work started on LMDE 6. The upcoming version of our Debian-based distro will be codenamed Fay. It will come with all the features and changes introduced in Linux Mix 21.2. There's no ETA for its release. Once everything is ready, we'll take the opportunity to work on additional features, see how much we want to further reduce the gap in functionality between Linux Mint and LMDE. In parallel to LMDE, we're also planning to release an Edge ISO for Linux Mint 21.2. The ISO will feature the Linux kernel 6.2 and make it easier to boot Mint on brand new hardware. But to me, Edge means like edge computing, like on small single board computers, but they have it as meaning on the leading edge, like what Debian testing or something would be, Another quick
Well,
hit.
let's be fair. Debian testing isn't the leading edge.
Well, that's
like
true.
Arch,
maybe like
Fedora
Arch or
are
something.
more of the leading edge. Yeah.
Right. Another quick hit, Microsoft's Linux distro CBL Mariner 2.0 adds Clippy. So, woohoo, you get to have Clippy back
Clippy's back.
this time on your Linux distro. Everybody loves the annoying Clippy. There's a big article called "The Cloud is a Prison." It's all about local first software movement, which is the whole self-hosting movement currently going on to get away from corporate malware, quote unquote. Microsoft is moving Windows to the cloud. So soon the most popular real desktop will be the Linux desktop. It will finally be the year of the Linux desktop. So somebody found some secret, let me put this in the notes real quick. Some secret Windows references to moving Windows totally cloud-based. Let's see, what was the... let's see, there's a lot of stuff to go through here, but real quick. Windows Central senior editor Zach Bowden, or Bowden, however you say it, recently discovered an internal document for Microsoft's attempted acquisition of Activision. This June 2022 presentation revealed Microsoft intends to move Windows 11 increasingly to the cloud, build on Windows 365 to enable a full Windows operating system, stream from the cloud to any device, use the power of the cloud and client to enable improved AI-powered services and full roaming of people's digital experience. The goal is to deliver a consumer version of the Windows 365 Cloud PC. So basically all you would need is, I guess, a browser? Or there would probably be some type of client application.
A browser and internet access.
Yeah. So
What
it
if
says,
you have internet access?
well, exactly, you couldn't run Windows. It says the 365 Cloud PC starts at $31 per user per month. This gives you a 4 gigabyte Azure VM with 128 gigabyte of storage, plus 365 apps, Outlook, and OneDrive. On Windows 11 PCs, you can access your cloud PCs through the Windows 365 app. In the coming months, Windows 365 Boot, currently in beta, will allow you to log directly into your Windows 365 cloud PC without booting your local Windows 11 PC. Huh. Isn't this what everybody wants? A cloud PC, not native to your desktop or laptop?
Of course. Who wants a native operating system?
It says, now you may say there's no way I'm going to subscribe to a cloud version of Windows. It says, really? Tell me, are you running Office 2019-2021 or Microsoft 365 at a cost of at least $70 a year? 345 million of you are already paying for Microsoft 365. The various flavors of Office 20XX, not so many. Nothing like as many. That's exactly what Microsoft wants. At Microsoft, we believe that the cloud will power the work of the future. Overwhelmingly, our customers are choosing the cloud to empower their people. This is how Microsoft makes its coin. Perhaps by the end of the decade, most Windows users will subscribe to cloud-based Windows. It says, do you know who won't be following Apple or Microsoft to the cloud? People who care about privacy, folks who want control over their data on their machines, and PC power users. And where will these good people go? 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. Yes, it's Linux. That's why Linux will finally emerge as the top PC operating system. Finally. So there you go. The future of Windows. Hey, like
Because
them
Two
apples.
Thumbs is not going to do that. This guy.
What about you, Netminer? Are you going to subscribe to Windows Virtual Desktop for $31 a month? Or would...
Is that really what it's $31 a month?
Well, currently for
That's
business users, the Office 365 Virtual Windows PC is $31 a month.
that's horrible.
There's a really cool article here on transforming your Android device into a Linux desktop. I'm going to put that in here using Termux, I believe. Isn't that the... Yeah, that's the Android app.
Yep.
Which I won't go completely through, but it would be fun to try. Not exactly convergence, but at least it gets you a Linux desktop on your phone.
I'm not sure about desktop. I like the idea of Termux in a terminal,
Yeah, I use
but I'm not
Termux
sure I
all the
want
time.
a full. I'm not sure I want a full desktop.
It'd be too small to see. You'd have to carry
Right.
around what are those called? Those empty monitor keyboard combos. Remember we've talked
Tablet.
about them. No, we talked about them in the past. Something deck or lap deck or maybe Mornsey remembers.
Nope.
Yeah, you do.
It's got a monitor.
I don't
and a
remember what it's
keyboard.
called.
It's got a monitor with keyboard and a mouse.
Is it a lap deck?
Laptop.
Lap dock.
Laptop.
That's what it's called. Lap dock. But they're just as expensive as a regular laptop. Like I'm looking on.
So it's got a keyboard and a mouse.
It looks like a laptop. It's
screen.
got a touchpad with the keyboard.
Does it fold up?
Yeah, still folds up. It's just like a
What?
laptop, except it has no internals. Doesn't have a motherboard. So it's just
Well,
built
that's the
to
point.
connect. It's built to connect to your phone or to your iPhone or to your Android phone for like Samsung on decks.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
Was it Motorola who came up with that first one?
Yeah, like the transformer. Anyway, like Samsung on decks, you could plug it into this.
Yeah. Somebody came up with one initially, and I know the biggest thing for a while was trying to hook up a Raspberry Pi to it.
Well, when we had Linux on decks, this made a lot more sense. They canceled that. Which I'm guessing you could use that to do this whole transfer your Android phone into a Linux desktop and just plug it into the lap dock.
Sure. Might be to actually use the applications that way, desktop applications.
Yeah. So there's some pretty detailed steps about how to get it working. But the author is Mrs. T, Mr. T's wife. She's really into Linux and Android.
Good for her. I wonder if she has the mohawk like Mr. T.
No.
No? All right. Just the bling?
Maybe so. You know, Mr. T doesn't wear the bling anymore.
I don't think he can afford the bling anymore.
He said that he does a lot of charity work with underprivileged kids, and he felt that it wasn't right showing up in front of all these poor families with a bunch of gold necklaces all over the place and wrists and earrings and stuff. So he quit wearing it.
Huh. Can't imagine.
I believe he still has the mohawk though. That's about it, unless y'all see something interesting. Ubuntu Touch brings support for the Fairphone 3, Volaphone X23, and the isn't this the phone that Mornsey has? FX Tech Pro 1X? Is that the one, Mornsey?
That's the one I ordered. Was the
Yeah.
FX Tech Pro.
So Ubuntu Touch has brought their OS to it now.
Yeah, and I think you can order it from China for $300, but I still don't have mine or my refund.
You're supposed to get your refund soon, weren't you?
Yeah, 3 months ago they said it'd be 3 months till I get it.
You're going to have to, next time you go see your girlfriend, y'all are going to have to make a trip to China and go talk to these FX Tech people and say, look, I'm tired of this crap.
Get L to hold them, and you work the body.
Just work them over. Beat your money out of them.
That's right.
Just make some friends. what is that, Shenzhen, and just go to one of the factories and build my own phone.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
What would you call it? The emergency phone.
Well, I'd come up,
I'm looking forward to an improved Jitsi.
Improved Jitsi? Oh, you mean with emergency and L on?
Well, L coming on would definitely be an improvement. Martin C, well, we already got that.
We know what he looks like.
It's old hat.
Old hat.
Besides, when L gets here, Martin C will be smiling so much we may need sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I'll be smiling so much I may need sunglasses.
Well, anything else?
I don't know. I'm going through here. Look, the clout is a prism one, and just kind of went bleh.
Yeah,
Google's
there's a lot
plan
there.
yeah, Google's plan to DRM the web goes against everything Google once stood for. I didn't know Google once stood for something.
Didn't they used
do
to say
no
don't
evil.
be evil?
Oh, at the same time, money, money, money. That's not worth looking at. And Emacs is my new window manager.
Mm-hmm.
You here even use Emacs?
No, I don't. I have a life.
No.
Oh.
It's been known for decades that Emacs is an operating system masquerading as a text editor.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've gone through all the Go Everywhere improves your Octoprint or Clipper experience.
Yeah, there's some Octoprint stuff.
So Octoprint has to be installed as the user Pi.
I think that's
Octoprints?
default. Yeah.
That's false, but if you look on the forums, everybody says, I don't know how to do it with another user ID. You have to use Pi. And Crackerjack at work, he set up a new system and put Octoprint on it and used the default user ID and not Pi when he set up Raspbian OS, or if he put Debian, whatever he put on it, Debian on the Pi.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't use the Pi user ID and it wouldn't work. And I walked him through searching and finding the config file for the service and changing the home directory and the user ID from Pi to his user ID and home/user ID for running the service, and everything worked.
Oh, good.
So I had him go back in where he asked the question and everybody was telling him he couldn't do it, and post the update on how to do it.
Nice.
Throw it in their face.
Yeah.
Well, I told him the next time he searches for how to do that, he might come up with his own answer on the forum.
Yeah. At least it's there now.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have anything else?
No, I think I'm ready for bed.
I'm with you.
Joe's hanging out with his dad.
Yep.
I was hoping we get his dad on here. Tell us about baby Joe.
Baby Joe.
Yeah, I thought of Joe when I saw somebody deadlifting 765 pounds twice.
That's a lot.
Why would you want to do that?
Break your back.
All right, do you want to close out or?
Yeah. All right, guys. This has been a interesting Linuxy show. Hopefully this will satisfy everyone. All right, let's see. Our next recording date will be August 18th, 2023. Our music is Downright, provided by Klaatu and Brome. We would like to thank Delwyn for the use of his mumble server. Finally, we would like to give a special thanks to Father Finch, Fleeb, Dave Morris, and Tony Bemis for all their help and support over the years. I have been Minix. And with me, has been Honky,
Good night.
Mortensey,
Good night, everyone.
Netminer,
Good night, folks.
and Tony in the chat. Good night, Tony. Thanks for joining us.